I came into this world into a fairly typical family. My parents, my younger sister Sarah, and me. Our humble two-story home was situated in a peaceful area where we resided. Just your average stuff. But with hindsight, I can see that was the end of my ordinary life. Our family dynamic changed the moment Sarah was born, which was 3 years after I was. She was a contagious infant who was constantly ill. My ear infections became persistent, my colds became bronchitis, and my fevers would come out of nowhere. On that particular day, I stood on the edge of my bedside table, watching as her frightened parents checked her temperature for what seemed like the 100th time. It was ironic that I failed to catch anything. No cold, no cough, not even a minor cut that required more than a Band-Aid. I stayed steadfastly healthy while Sarah appeared to get every disease circulating. You'd assume that a healthy child would make the parents quite happy. My excellent health, nevertheless, became nearly a hindrance in our home. When I was 7 years old, I had my first desire that I were sick. As a child, I wished for a fever or a severe cough so that my parents could cuddle up with me and read me bedtime tales, just like they did when Sarah was sick. Someone even got me to pretend to have a stomach ache, to which my mother merely said, "You're fine, Gloria," after taking one glance in my direction. "Please go wash the dishes for me." The pattern only got more noticeable as we entered our teenage years, while I, at 14 years old, essentially became our household's maintenance crew. Sarah, at 11 years old, mainly slept or lounged around the house. A full-blown preoccupation developed out of Mom's worries about germs, which began with frequent cleaning. It was necessary to disinfect every surface several times daily. It was necessary to wipe the floors at least 3 times, and possibly more frequently if someone had trodden on them while wearing shoes. May not even the tiniest particle of dust land on Sarah's priceless skin. I would tell my mom, "But Mom, I just cleaned everything an hour ago," while looking down at the floor that was already entirely clean. When I tried to dispute with her, Gloria would become angry and force the mop into my hands. "In what ways would you like your sister to be ill? Would you prefer that she remain in the hospital?" Guilt became her weapon of choice. They framed my opposition as an assault on Sarah's health. Sarah, however, would do nothing but sit about and read or watch TV. She would give me sympathetic looks now and again, but she would never offer to lend me a hand. What makes you think she would? Indeed, she was the one who fell ill. A ritualistic quality crept into the cleaning regimen. Step 1, sweep, mop, and dust. Later on, do it again. Afternoon, turn it off. Mom would look for the tiniest dust particle and then demand that I redo the entire room because she was so meticulous, like a military sergeant. The continual odor of bleach and disinfectant grew so pervasive that I began to ignore it, much like the soreness in my arms from the relentless scrubbing. I was exhausted from all the cleaning and taking care of others. I felt like I was going to drown in the sea of adolescent life, what with all the homework, trying to fit in at home and school. As I looked out the window of Miller's Diner, which is located just 3 blocks away from our house, I noticed a help wanted sign. While I watched my mom chop Sarah's meat into little pieces, a task she could have easily accomplished on her own, I said, "I want to work there," at supper that night. I'm 16 now. A diner? My mother's nose furrowed. "Gloria, do you know how many germs?" My dad surprised me by speaking up. "Okay, Helen, give her a go. Having some responsibilities could be beneficial for her." That made me laugh so hard, as if I hadn't been taking charge since the age of 7. Not wishing to risk the unexpected support, I remained silent. The diner became my sanctuary. Sure, the work was hard, carrying plates, dealing with grumpy customers, cleaning tables, but it was different from the endless cleaning at home. Here, I was valued. Mrs. Miller, the owner, actually thanked me for my work. Customers left tips with genuine smiles. For 4 hours every afternoon, I wasn't just Sarah's sister or the healthy one. I was just Gloria, the reliable waitress who remembered their coffee orders. Every penny I earned went straight into my secret savings account. When Mom asked about my paychecks, I'd shrug and say I was buying school supplies or new clothes. She never questioned it. As long as they didn't have to spend money on me, they were happy. But the diner was just part of my escape plan. During the day, I threw myself into my studies with the same determination I'd once put into cleaning our house. I joined every academic club I could, entered every competition, and signed up for all the advanced placement classes our school offered. Gloria Martinez, my chemistry teacher, announced one day, perfect score on the state science Olympiad again. My classmates clapped, but I was already thinking about how this would look on my college applications. I needed a full-ride scholarship. My future depended on it. The day I got my acceptance letter from State University, complete with a full academic scholarship, I wasn't even surprised. I'd worked too hard for any other outcome. But I waited to tell my parents, knowing what was coming. Sure enough, a week later, Mom and Dad sat me down at the kitchen table. Sarah lingered in the doorway, pretending not to listen. "Gloria," Mom began, her voice heavy with practiced martyrdom, "we need to talk about college. With all of Sarah's medical bills, we just can't afford to help with your tuition," Dad finished, looking genuinely uncomfortable. "The treatments have taken everything." "I got a full scholarship," I interrupted, pulling out my acceptance letter. "Everything's covered. Tuition, room and board, even books. You won't have to pay anything." The relief on their faces should have hurt, but I was past that. What I didn't expect was the flash of envy that crossed Sarah's face as she slipped away from the doorway. State University was 800 miles from home, and honestly, that wasn't far enough. My dorm room was tiny with mint green walls and a squeaky bed, but it was mine. No cleaning schedules, no guilt trips, no constant reminders of Sarah's needs. I declared my major in business management right away. I figured if I could handle entitled customers and daily totals at a diner, I could handle anything the business world threw at me. "We'll try to send you some money when we can," Mom had said during our weekly phone call. "But Sarah's new treatment is very expensive and—" "It's fine," I cut her off, already knowing the script. I found a job at the campus cafe. The cafe job wasn't bad. I worked between classes and some weekends, serving overpriced lattes to sleep-deprived students and professors. The tips weren't as good as the diner, but the flexible schedule made up for it. Plus, they let us drink the messed-up drinks for free, which saved me plenty on caffeine. Sometimes I called my parents. Every conversation followed the same pattern. Mom would list Sarah's latest health issues. Dad would mumble something about bills, and they'd both find ways to mention how expensive everything was. I'd learned to keep my responses short and change the subject quickly. I only went home for major holidays. Sarah would usually be there, looking less sickly each time, but still playing the role of the delicate flower. Then came the news that Sarah had graduated high school. I wasn't able to attend the ceremony, or at least that's what I told them. Finals were a convenient excuse. "We're so proud," Mom gushed during our next call. "She's going to attend Madison College. Their medical program is excellent, and they have a wonderful student health center." I gripped my phone tighter. "That's great. How's she paying for it?" There was a slight pause. "Oh, we've been saving." The irony hit me like a slap. After years of "we spent everything on Sarah's treatments, and we just can't afford college right now," they'd somehow managed to find enough money to send her to a private college. I thought about my own scholarship applications, the countless nights spent perfecting essays while also maintaining my grades and working at the diner. "That's wonderful," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I'm happy for her. We just want what's best for her health," Mom added, as if I might have forgotten their eternal justification. After hanging up, I sat on my bed and let out a long breath. The familiar bitter taste in my mouth wasn't exactly anger anymore. It was more like validation. Every scholarship I'd earned, every extra shift I'd worked, every penny I'd saved had been the right choice. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at Bennett Associates, a mid-sized consulting firm. The starting salary wasn't impressive, but I saw potential. While other new hires complained about long hours and tedious tasks, I threw myself into every project. Martinez, my supervisor, called out one Friday afternoon that efficiency protocol you suggested for the Thompson account. The CEO loved it. Keep this up, and you're going places. I did keep it up. Every project, every presentation, every client meeting became an opportunity to prove myself. I developed a reputation for innovative solutions and attention to detail. When I proposed a new customer relationship management system that saved the company thousands, the senior partners took notice. The promotions came steadily after that. Junior analyst to senior analyst to project manager. Each step up meant more responsibility, more respect, and yes, more money. I moved from my cramped studio to a decent one-bedroom apartment, bought some proper furniture, and started building an emergency fund that had nothing to do with escaping my family. Your quarterly numbers are exceptional, Mr. Bennett himself told me during my third-year review. How would you feel about heading up our new digital transformation division? I was 30, making six figures, and finally feeling like I'd built something solid for myself when the call came. Gloria, honey, Mom's voice had that forced cheerfulness I remembered so well. You must come visit this weekend. This is important family news. Sarah will be so disappointed if you're not here. Some things never change. I rearranged my schedule, delegated some tasks to my team, and booked a flight home. The house looked exactly the same when I arrived, maybe a few more cleaning supplies by the door, but otherwise unchanged. Sarah's car was in the driveway, along with an unfamiliar blue sedan. Mom opened the door before I could knock. Gloria, come in, come in. Everyone's in the living room. Sarah was perched on the couch next to a tall man with glasses and a nervous smile. Dad sat in his usual armchair, and Mom quickly reclaimed her spot next to Sarah. Gloria, Sarah beamed. This is David, my fiancé. We're getting married. She continued, holding up her left hand to display a sizable diamond ring. The engagement party is in 2 weeks. You'll come, right? I managed a smile and appropriate congratulatory noises. David seemed nice, but something felt off. Throughout dinner, the conversation kept circling back to my career. Mom, Dad, even Sarah, couldn't stop asking questions. So, what exactly is your title now? Mom pressed. And you manage how many people? Dad wanted to know. Digital transformation? That sounds impressive, Sarah mused. Must pay well. Answered each question vaguely, years of practice helping me deflect their increasingly pointed inquiries about my finances. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this sudden interest in my career success wasn't just casual conversation. 2 weeks flew by in a blur of work deadlines and project meetings. Before I knew it, I was back in my hometown, pulling up to the Grand Plaza, easily the most expensive restaurant in the city. Sarah waved to me from the entrance, wearing a designer dress I knew she couldn't afford on her entry-level nurse's salary. David stood beside her, looking uncomfortable in his new suit. The private dining room was packed with faces I barely recognized, distant relatives, old family friends, what seemed like David's entire extended family. Crystal glasses clinked, waiters glided between tables with bottles of champagne, and elaborate flower arrangements centered each table. The evening progressed through course after expensive course, imported caviar, Wagyu beef, vintage wines. I couldn't help doing the mental math. This had to be running into the thousands. On my last visit, Sarah had mentioned struggling to make her student loan payments, and I knew David worked at a local library. The numbers weren't adding up. Another bottle of champagne for table 3. Sarah called out to a passing waiter, not even glancing at the wine list. She caught my eye and smiled. We have to celebrate properly, right? Finally, as the dessert plates were being cleared and guests were starting to gather their things, the restaurant manager approached our table. He was carrying a leather folder, the evening's final bill. He announced it, looking expectantly at the group. Before anyone else could move, Sarah gave an airy wave. "Oh, my sister Gloria will take care of that," she said, smiling at me with artificial sweetness. "She's very successful, a big executive in the city." The manager turned to me and extended the folder. I took it, opened it, and felt my blood run cold. The number at the bottom had far more zeros than I'd expected, even with my worst-case calculations. I looked up to find every eye at the table on me. Mom and Dad wore identical expressions of studied nonchalance, as if this had been the plan all along. David looked mortified, said nothing. And Sarah was smirking, actually smirking, like she just pulled off some clever trick. They planned this, all of it. The excessive menu choices, the premium wines, the endless appetizers, the constant questions about my job and salary. During their surprise announcement, they'd set me up, assuming I wouldn't dare cause a scene at my sister's engagement party. I closed the bill folder and stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. The restaurant had grown quieter, other guests sensing the tension at our table. "I'm not paying this bill," I said, my voice steady. "This is the first I'm hearing about any of this." Sarah's face contorted. "What do you mean you're not paying?" "Of course you're paying. You're my sister." "Gloria," Mom hissed, "don't make a scene." David's parents exchanged alarmed looks. His mother leaned forward. "I'm sorry, what's happening?" "We thought the bill had been arranged." "Nothing was arranged," I said, looking directly at Sarah. "They just assumed I'd pay without asking me." Sarah shot up from her chair, face red. "You selfish. You make all that money, and you can't even help your own sister. What kind of person are you?" "Sarah, honey, please calm down." David tried to intervene, reaching for her arm. She yanked away from him. "Don't tell me to calm down. She's ruining everything. She's always been jealous of me." The scene devolved quickly. Sarah grabbed a wine glass and hurled it against the wall, then a plate, then another. Crystal shattered. Guests gasped, and David's parents stood up, horrified. David tried again to calm her, but she shoved him so hard he stumbled backward into a waiter. I didn't stay to watch the rest. I grabbed my purse, walked out of the restaurant, and drove straight to the airport. I booked the first flight home while sitting in the terminal, my hands shaking, not from fear or anger, but from a strange sense of relief. The mask had finally dropped. They couldn't pretend anymore. My phone started ringing at 7:00 a.m. the next morning. Mom's number. "How dare you?" she screeched before I could even say hello. "You've ruined everything." "Sarah is devastated. The engagement is probably off now, and it's all your fault." "My fault." I let out a harsh laugh. "You tried to scam me." "Scam you? We're family. You make more than enough money to help your sister have her special day. You're just being selfish, like always." Dad's voice cut in. They had me on speaker. "You humiliated us in front of everyone. You need to make this right." "Make it right?" I repeated. "You mean pay for the bill you tried to trick me into covering?" "Well, yes," Mom said, as if it was obvious. "And since you've caused all this trouble, you should pay for the wedding too. The venue Sarah wants is $40,000, and that would be a good way to apologize." I couldn't help it. I started laughing. Not Pollitt laughter, but deep, borderline hysterical laughter. "Let me be very clear," I said when I could speak again. "I'm not paying for the engagement dinner. I'm not paying for the wedding. I'm not paying for anything. And please, don't call me again." I hung up, blocked their numbers, and went to make coffee. I had a meeting in 2 hours, and I wasn't going to let their drama derail my life anymore. A week after the restaurant disaster, I was scrolling through Facebook during my lunch break when I saw it. David's relationship status had changed to single. A few clicks revealed that Sarah had removed all their photos together. The engagement was off. I wasn't surprised. After watching Sarah's meltdown, any sane person would run for the hills. What did surprise me was the post that appeared on my feed later that evening, written by my mother and shared by what seemed like every relative we had. With heavy hearts, we must announce that Sarah's engagement has ended. While we usually keep family matters private, we feel we must speak out about the cruel and deliberate actions that led to this heartbreak. Our eldest daughter, Gloria, had promised to help with the engagement celebration and wedding costs, knowing how much this meant to her sister. But at the engagement dinner, she purposely humiliated Sarah in front of both families by refusing to pay the bill she had agreed to cover. This calculated act of sabotage came from a place of long-time jealousy and resentment. We have always known that Gloria envied the attention Sarah needed due to her health issues, but we never imagined she would stoop so low as to deliberately ruin her sister's happiness. Sarah is devastated, and David's family was so shocked by the scene that they encouraged him to reconsider the marriage. Our family is torn apart because one person chose spite over sisterly love. To those who wonder why we're sharing this publicly, we believe it's important to stand up to toxic behavior, even from family members, especially from family members. The comments poured in like poison. I always knew there was something off about Gloria. One person wrote, "So cold and distant at family gatherings. Poor Sarah. She's been through so much already with her health issues, and now this betrayal from her own sister. How could anyone be so heartless? Family should support each other." Aunt Margaret, who hadn't spoken to me in years, chimed in. "Helen, I'm so sorry your daughter turned out this way. You and Richard were such wonderful parents to both girls. Some people are just born selfish." Cousin Rachel, who'd attended the engagement, added, "I was there. Gloria just walked out while Sarah was crying. She didn't even try to explain or apologize. Shocking behavior. Even distant relatives I barely remembered were joining the pile on, each comment more viciously righteous than the last. Not one person questioned my parents' version of events. Not one person wondered why I might have refused to pay. Not one person reached out to hear my side. The narrative was set. I was the villain who destroyed my sister's happiness out of jealousy, the successful but bitter older sister who couldn't stand to see her younger sibling happy, the cold-hearted career woman who chose money over family. I began typing. I've never been one to air family drama publicly, but since my parents have chosen to share their version of events, I feel compelled to share the truth. No, I never promised to pay for Sarah's engagement dinner or wedding. In fact, I knew nothing about these supposed obligations until the restaurant bill was handed to me at the end of the evening. The truth is simple. My parents and sister orchestrated an elaborate dinner at one of the most expensive restaurants in town, invited 50 guests, ordered premium everything, and then expected me to cover the massive bill without any prior discussion or agreement. When I refused to pay for this surprise expense, Sarah had a meltdown that included throwing and breaking restaurant property. I left to avoid escalating the situation. My folks phoned me first thing in the morning to scold me. In addition to the engagement dinner, they wanted me to shell over $40,000 for the wedding. It was always their intention to set up this ambush. Actually, they justified it by claiming that my income is sufficient to pay for these costs. Do not believe me when I say this. Give it a listen. Just on impulse, I added the audio clip I had recorded of the phone call that morning. Am grateful. Their voices were audible, harsh and accusatory. She says, "You make more than enough money to help your sister have her special day. Your father, you need to make this right. I say, You mean pay for the bill you tried to trick me into covering? Mom, absolutely. You should also foot the bill for the wedding, given that you're the one who's caused all this hardship. Sarah wants a venue that costs $40,000. The remarks began right away, but they were unique. Gloria, let me tell you, I deeply regret presuming the worst. Their attempt to sneak you a fee like that without any notice is unbelievable. Say who does that? Both Helen and Richard, you have every right to be embarrassed. I am not a parent. This is exploitation. Gloria, my darling, I am deeply sorry. Aunt Margaret wrote, there had to be more to this than what I was led to believe. I was there at that dinner, and I knew something felt off about the whole thing. Rachel added, her cousin. I ought to have raised my voice earlier. Gloria, I apologize deeply. Several members of David's family voiced their concerns about Sarah's stability and behavior, suggesting that she was more to blame than I was for the broken engagement. It was already too late when my parents attempted damage management by saying the tape was misinterpreted. Word got out. I departed before the consequences could be seen. I removed the Facebook app from my phone, blocked my parents' numbers, and Sarah on all social media. It had had enough. How long has it been? 6 months. After that, I stopped communicating with them all. Sarah is currently seeing a therapist, and my parents are attending family counseling, but I rarely reply to the texts my relatives send me. I won't hold my breath till they realize the harm they've caused. My life, my work, and the people who have decided to be a part of my family are my current priorities. They are there to support me without taking advantage of me. Plus, prioritizing my own needs has never felt so good to me. Taking a break is sometimes the best option for your health. In the case of relatives as well, particularly when it comes from loved ones.